Oh. Yes. Nearly. Hello, everybody. Gaz Williams here, and welcome to my new show. And yes, tonight is really interesting. I have got a wonderful guest joining later in about half an hour, a Mr. Dan Moore. Now, some of you may have heard of him, some of you may not have. Dan is a Bristol keyboard player, incredible keyboard player, wonderful musician. He's played with lots of people. He plays in the Will Gregory Moog Ensemble, and is is an incredible player. He's played with, he's played with so many people. There's so many good names around here. When he comes on the show, we'll talk about those people who he's played with. But the reason why he's going to come on the show is his band, Modulus III, are fantastic. And I really, really want to, to help kind of give them a bit more exposure, really, because I think they're super cool. It's a 3-piece band. Drums, Dan on keys, and then Drew, who does some synths, but he plays cello as well. So it's an unusual band. And they've recently recorded an album, I say recently, pre-lockdown, at Peter Gabriel's wonderful studio, Real World. Real World is about, probably about 30 miles away from Bristol or so, maybe a bit less. Legendary studio, and they made a little documentary about their recording there and about their new album, and that little documentary is going to receive its world premiere on the show tonight, so stay tuned for that, because very nice, good introduction to the band. Modulus 3 are instrumental. They very much do texture and mood within their music, but also there's a really nice groove to it. All will be revealed later, so stick around, because definitely worth a watch, and to talk to Dan as well. Dan, as I say, terrific keyboard player, really very inspiring indeed. So I'm really thrilled to have him joining us tonight. Right, what have I got in front of me? Yes, now let's have a little look here. We have got the Stylophone Gen-R8. We have got the Korg SQ1, and we've got the Digitech Timebender. Now, these things, just as I was getting ready to go, there is a horrific ground hum, some sort of buzz that I couldn't seem to get rid of. Let me demonstrate just what horrible sound it actually is. Let's just stop this. Now, so touching the case and it stops it. So, oh, there it is. So I'm going to have to keep fading that out. Oh, why is it doing it? And if I detach the SQ1, so it's not attached at all, it's still doing it. So I have got something going on there that I need to figure out. So long as I'm touching, I'm just going to have to keep touching the case in some way. So if that horrible noise comes along, that's what it is. So I apologise for that. Why have I got these particular things in front of me? Well, in part because the dreaded gas has struck me recently, and I love delay pedals. I've got quite a few. I don't really need any more, but let me get rid of that for a moment. Yes. Delay. This delay pedal is quite an interesting one, because it's got pitch. It's got like a pitch element to it, so it can kind of pitch the repeats. So I thought it might be quite good fun to see what we can do with that using a monosynth, and I've chosen the Stylophone tonight. I might regret that because of this noise. I don't know if it's the Stylophone to blame or some other dodgy sort of wiring going on. Maybe it's this. I don't know. No, I tried bypassing that, so it wasn't that. So I'm afraid I think that is the Stylophone at fault. I'm assuming. Now, the Stylophone, if you've not encountered one of these things, this is the big Stylophone, the fairly recently released Gen-R8, and it is a noisy old thing, and that's part of its appeal, actually. It really kind of makes a lot of strange noises. It shouldn't be doing that, though. Let me have a look at the chat room. Hello, wow, dodgy power supply on the Gen-R8. I reckon that is what it is. Yes. what does it take? I think it might be a 15 volt. I might go and see if I can find one a bit later, because keeping my finger on the casing is going to soon become quite annoying. So I did notice actually as soon, because it's clearly like a ground thing, because if I can connect something to this, then touching the SQ1 is also kind of grounding it. Yes, dodgy power supply. Okay, right, so let's see what we can do. Now, the Gen-R8, as I mentioned, is a monosynth. It's an analog monosynth. There is these controls, I think, use some sort of digital scanning, so it's not entirely analog. Well, the signal path is, but I think the delay is that digital delay. I think, you know, that again, chat room might need to help me out on this. There is a kind of delay chip that is used in lots of things. It's really cruddy and got a lot of character. And the delay in this certainly is that. So let's have a little listen then. I'm going to keep that unplugged for now, and delay is off, and we'll have a little listen to the Gen-R8, because the Gen-R8 does have some really fun features. I got some extra patch cables. So there's so there are patch points on there. So there is a certain amount of interfacing that you can do with it, with other bits of kit. So that's what I thought. I'd put the old bring the SQ1 in to connect it, so we can have the two sequencers, because there's a sequencer in here and this can be actually two sequencers as well. So we'll have a bonanza of sequencering going on. Stream okay so far? Yeah, stream okay. Okay, cool. Just checking. Oh, got a black screen. Don't know where that is, I'm afraid. Bucket Brigade chip. I don't think it is. I think the delay chip is a... it's become so popular in lots of things. I think it may be similar to the one that's in the Dreadbox Erebus, which still is one of my absolute favourite synths of all time. I've got the Mark II over there. Dreadbox changed their ways of making things to surface mount technology recently, as opposed to the more kind of labour intensive through hole. Yanis from Dreadbox has assured me though that the sound of the latest is as good as the through hole. So I think the idea that through hole somehow sounds better, I think, is tied in with the romantic notion of people really working hard at making things rather than it being all done by machine. I don't know if that's a controversial point, but I haven't actually tried the Erebus III. I am Mark III. I am tempted though, because it does bring a bunch of extra goodies into the Erebus platform. But the Erebus Mark II, which is virtually the same as the Mark I, I think there was just a few patch points changed. I think, you know, it's really, really very similar, whereas the Mark II and the Mark III are really, really different. But the Mark III has got a bunch of extra things. I think it's got extra modulation capabilities, and yeah, it has got more controls on it. But my goodness, the oscillators on the Erebus, the other one that I've got, are the best sounding oscillators of all of the equipment I think that I've got. And I would even go as far to say the best sounding oscillators I've ever heard. And I've heard other people say that, people who know better as well. So there is something in that. Dreadbox, of course, have recently had a huge hit on their hands with the Typhon. If you haven't watched Nick Batt's video on Sonic State, I recommend that you do that. Nick loves it. He really loves it. He thinks it's perfect. He thinks it's an absolutely brilliant piece of kit, which is amazing, because he is, you know, quite hard to please. And I think his endorsement for something, it goes a long way. And he really loves it. He thinks it's really, really good. But they're all sold out. So I wonder if some of you have actually ordered them and having to wait. I don't know when the next batch is going to be coming, but it's been really successful for them. So yay, good, because Dreadbox, yeah, my heart beats in big bumps for Dreadbox. Yes. Okay, so some people having problems with the stream. I wonder why that is. So this is coming through Restream to YouTube. So apologies for that. I don't know if there's any. I don't think there's anything my end there. So Anyway, so we're going to have a little listen to the Gen-R8, and I'll just do a little quick play around some of the sounds that you can get on it. Okay, let's do that. So the oscillators, you don't have any level controls of the oscillators. They're either on or off. But when you do turn them on, they do have a few tricks up their sleeves. So let's just turn both of them off. Bring it in. Let's try and I could just keep touching this. Just you can still hear a bit of background noise there. Anyway, okay. So oscillator 1 to the left goes into square waves. I tell you, it's a noisy old beast, this thing. It does kick out a lot of sounds, a lot of kind of unwanted sounds, but sort of you kind of get to appreciate them in a way. Okay, if I turn it one more, it gives me a sub oscillator with it. But if I turn it again, it gives me a sub oscillator 2 octaves down. Oh god, that noise is going to drive me mad. Okay, put it back off. To the right though, we got a sawtooth. It sounds a bit weedy at the moment. It shouldn't. Let's give it a bit more gain. Okay, let's go a bit louder. There we go. Oh, I'm so sorry about the background noise. Okay, but I can add. Sub oscillator. Oh, sorry. Oh, it's the wrong one. One that's 2 octaves down. Why is that chugging? Or both sub oscillators. So that oscillator now we got 3. We got the sawtooth and 2 sub oscillators. So I'm wondering if the power supply, do you know what? I'm looking at the little LFO light on here. It's really not as bright as it should be. I think Andrew said in the chat room, I think there may be a power supply issue. Right. Okay, I might need to do a little bit of a because that definitely isn't sounding as good and as thick and as nasty as it should sound. Well, it's sounding nasty, but the wrong kind of nasty. And we want good nasty. Yes. Oh, spoons now. What power supply does it take? DC in. Anonymous. Right. I'm sure it is 12 volts. Okay, I reckon I can do 12 volts. And I reckon Electron to the rescue. Yes. Okay. So sorry about this. Gonna just find a 12 volt power supply, DC power supply, and I think Electron. I've got an Electron power supply here. Okay. Dodgy power supply. Phew. All right. Oh, and it's so much quieter. Hallelujah. Okay, we're good. Dodgy power supply. I've been having a few dodgy power supplies. I wonder why that is. Anyway, okay, where am I? I'm good now. I'm feeling a little bit more confident. That's been really undermining my my entertainment ability. So yes, I'm quite happy. Okay. Yeah, so one sawtooth, sub octave, one that's 2 octaves down, 2 sub octaves. So that's one thing that's kind of cool about this, because you've got 2 oscillators that can both have 2 sub-oscillators simultaneously. Only sawtooths, that is, but that does mean that when you do sawtooths, you can have 6 oscillators. Let's do that. Yes. Here we go. Now, it's still a bit quiet, isn't it? Let's get some more gain here. All right. Yeah. I think it's got a cool tone to it. It is definitely got a lot of personality. There is a drive circuit on the Gen-R8, and it is a really nice distortion. So have a listen to this. I love the sound of this. It may be getting a bit loud now. Without, obviously, adds loads of gain. But it's got a thickness to it. It doesn't thin out the low end at all. Take the release back a bit. Okay, we're good. Now, you see with the drive up there, you can hear, well, you might be able to hear that noise. Right. Let's do it. Let's do it. Right, let's make some noise. Yeah. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right. Okay. Right. Okay, I'm excited now. Let's plug some of this stuff in. So I'm going to go in to the CV in. Voila. Pow. And I'm going to plug into the gate as well. So the envelope in like so. So now if I press play on here. I know why. I'm syncing to the... Let's just take that out for now. What's going on? Let's get into a different octave. Oh, what's happening here? This isn't sounding right. Yikes! Okay. I'm going to turn off the active steps. Let's turn all of them off. Okay. Right. Oh, fine. I'm going to turn the gates off as well. Gosh. Yay. Oh my god. Hang on. Let's take the gain down a moment. Oh. Okay. I might just increase the CV range, I think. Function 2. I'm going to go a bit higher again. I'm going to go 5 volts. Okay. Not quite sure how well it'll scale, but let's have a look. So at the moment, that step is just repeating. Let's now add some more steps. Okay. 4 gates are on, but only 2 active steps are on. Sorry, said that wrong. 4 active steps, 2 gates. Oh, sorry, it's a bit loud. Here we go. Sorry about this. Right, here we go. Very simple thing. Let's bring in the delay and let's see what fun we can have with it. Now, this control lets you choose what the harmonies are. It doesn't tell you, it just says they're either high, H for high, HH for extra high, L for low, LL for extra low. But now, with the pattern, it's only triggering 1. So if I put 2 now, change the pattern, it'll let me do... See, this is sounding pretty cool. I can filter the delays as well. Filter the low end out of them. Also, if I hold this pedal down, it'll learn the rhythm. So there's no MIDI sync on here or any way to clock it, but it should be able to grab it. It'll go silent for a moment. G flat. But also, it tries to learn the harmony, or rather the underlying key. So actually, if I was to take off this gate here, make it listen to that. So that's a G flat. So I suppose if I turn this now, yeah, I can dial in the root, sort of. C. Okay. Whoa. I'm not sure if the scaling is going to work in key particularly, but let's try it anyway. So you've got different patterns here. Doesn't look like it's grabbed the tempo that well. Let's add a few more steps. Okay. So these different, well, the combination of different patterns and different harmonies is bringing a bit more low end. Oh, yeah, so if the tone goes beyond 12 o'clock, they get darker then. And also the mix control, if I turn it all the way to the right, will be only delay only. Let's crank the delay time on here. Oh, sorry, the repeats. Now let's try playing with some of the different harmonies. Let's bring some square waves in. Oh! Now change the voicing so the pattern will go to a different pattern. Go brighter. Filter. I think this video highlights the importance of soaking a crappy sound in delays and reverbs. Yes! That's my absolute get out of jail It's quite nice just sort of randomly sort of just adjusting things. Oh, that's right. When I go over here, it starts to give you actually intervals. Either, you know, a third low, a fifth low, unison, to make them higher. So, whoa! It's all a bit crazy now. Yes. The resonance. Okay. Da-da, da-da. Yes. 2 sequencers on here. Let's filter that out so it's right. What am I going to modulate with the other sequencer? Let's have a look. I think we will put them into... Oh, I suppose I could have oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. Let's do that. Yeah. So the one... Oh, yes. So they'll be following gate 1. Let's go into there. And then that one is going to go into... Oh, sorry. Yeah, so blue is feeding oscillator 1 and purple is oscillator 2. So I'll have oscillator 2 being a sawtooth, oscillator 1 being a square. Okay, let's try and see if this makes any sound. Okay. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to make this play as 2 separate sequences. I'm going to bring some of the Stylophone's own crusty delay in. Someone once described the music I was making as nightmare ambience, and I really subscribe to that. I find that's the easiest genre to make. Yeah. Oh my god, this is horrible. It's horrible, but it's kind of nice as well. Now, just to make it even more annoying, I'm going to take the CV out of the sequencer and I'm going to put it into the sync in on here. So the sequencer is going to be driven from... This sequencer is going to be driven from this sequencer, which is also going to be driving its notes. Let's see what happens. More horribleness, probably. Oh, this is lovely, isn't it? Oh yeah, I'm in a totally... Let's come out of the wet and come dry a bit now. Oh yes. Take that, music lovers. Now, I'm doing this in... This is like airing your dirty washing in public. It shouldn't be done. Oh, it's kind of lovely, horrible. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop this nonsense now because it's time to bring in our guest. So this was just a little bit of fun, really. Glad the power supply issue was sorted though. Yes. Yeah, I was saying I'm gassing about delays. So I haven't used this one for a while and it is actually a lot of fun, but I have used it a little bit with synths, but it is really good with guitar, partly because if you're playing chords into it, you can put it into a strum mode. And when you put it in strum mode, when you hold the pedal down, you can play a rhythm into it and it'll kind of it'll make the pattern based on the rhythm that you're playing. It's not amazing at tracking you, but you have to kind of learn to do it a little bit, but then it's all right. It's pretty good. But it can detect whether you're playing a major or a minor, and then that will set it as the root key. Now, obviously, when I'm feeding it with the monosynth, I guess I could play with the detune. Yeah, I could, to get it in to some sort of... so it's playing either a major third or a minor third, then I guess that would pick it up. Anyway, but that is a moot point because it is time for me to introduce my guest. But before my guest comes on, I'd like to play this little film that Modulus III have made. It's a really nice little documentary, and it's about 9 minutes long, and it'll give you a good introduction to the band. Let's have a look now. Okay, let's run the film. See you on the other side with Dan Moore, our special guest.
I think it's really hard to sum up Modulus in a quick phrase.
Modulus 3 happened by accident. It's been a series of accidents ever since.
For me, it's always been very conversational. Somebody will start playing and somebody will react and somebody else will comment on that with a sound, and that'll change the conversation in a different direction.
It's also very democratic. It's like a sort of democratic language that forms in the moment.
We've all had such different backgrounds. Drew's had a very classical background. Dan's had an educated background, classical stuff, lots of improv and lots of rock and punk. And I'm the uneducated one. You know, I've taught myself, and we like to blur the lines a bit. We just want to make music.
I've known Matt Brown for an awfully long time as a drummer. For me, and also in Bristol, there's sort of common knowledge. He is one of the most original drummers, I think, to have come along in quite some time.
If I could take a pill and suddenly have the ability to play drums, I would want to play like Matt Brown. Just has that instinctual connection to groove and rhythm and curiosity and feel that is just really fun to play with.
Modulus 3 started, actually, it was a gig with me and Dan. We were doing a gig in Bristol as a trio, but not as Modulus.
The bass player dropped away.
So we decided we're not going to pull the gig, we'll just improvise.
And after the gig, Drew saw it, said, "Can I join your band?" And we just said, "Yeah, of course."
We just met up in a room, didn't talk, and just played, just to see if we're all on different wavelengths, because improvised music can go in very different places. Within about 5 minutes of playing, I was like, yeah, it's gonna work.
We were into sound very quickly, and we just made sound together and played for a while.
Drew is the cellist and synthesizer player for Modulus 3, and he's brilliant. Was introduced to me by a mutual friend, and we had a coffee, and the coffee turned into a beer, and then that beer turned into another beer, and we just started talking about music, and he started talking about all these things that I didn't know about, and it was like, my goodness me, this is fascinating.
Drew is one of the most hardworking, inspiring people I know. He's just an all-round badass. Drew Morgan.
think improvising, there is an element of freedom, there's an element of being playful. You know, where we are in our lives affects the music, the environment, everything. Luckily, the music we can completely change based on those differences as well. So yeah, we thought, I mean, the big priority at the moment is, I think Dan's not totally in love with his sonic situation yet.
Did you want to put this riff in as well? Okay, so we're all listening.
Dan Moore is one of my favorite musical characters I've ever met. His approach to sound and his love of music and musicians is wonderful.
He's helped me a lot and educated me a lot. Whether he knows it or not, I've learnt a lot from him. He's been incredibly good to me. I wouldn't be where I am now without Dan Moore.
I think when Modulus III is playing live, I think we celebrate our differences rather than make them a problem. And what Modulus III does is it allows us to explore whatever we happen to arrive at in the moment. Sometimes it stops at exactly the same point and we haven't communicated anything to one another, but we all stop at the same time. You know, it's kind of quite weird when that happens.
For me, there's a huge element of trust. And if I'm ever at a point where I'm thinking, oof, I don't know where to take this, somebody will chime in with something. It's almost like a spoken conversation, but with sounds.
Trust is the key. It is so important, and it means you can be completely free within your decisions. And I know that we can go anywhere we want. I'm excited to see where it takes us. I mean, it's not just us in a studio, we've got a live audience as well.
There is a good interaction between the audience and us. The feeling is very much of a sort of collective experience, and that this moment is only going to last right now. And that for me is extraordinarily important. We've all arrived at this point where the music is happening, and we don't know how we got there. The fact that we don't know how we got there is the thing that's beautiful about it.
And there's something about us getting on stage knowing that this could fall apart in any second, at any second. I always think of like the circus, we see people on the tightrope. You know, they could fall. The band's not about an individual showing off. It's about what we can create together as a three-piece, connecting to what it is to be an emotional human being. And there's no wrong or right music except for music with intention or without intention. And when we're listening to it and we're playing with intention to connect or to react, then we're doing it right. And that's a really lovely way to make music.
Hey, and here we are. Dan is here. I'm just going to flick onto this here. I'm going to do this thing here. What do I do? Scale. Oh no. One moment, everyone. The thing has gone small. It's gone small. Why has it gone small? Right. The thing has gone small. Scale to window. Canvas. No. Oh, look. I practiced this. It's gone small. It's weird. It's... Bear with me, everyone. I'm so sorry. Gosh. Yes. I've got such a... So Dan is here waiting patiently. I've got a lovely audience here who kind of are very patient with my... I don't know why that's gone weird. It's gone small and it's annoyed me. Scale. What? Transform. Why has it gone small?
Is it kind of good? Is it kind of good though?
No, it's like a little tiny thin strip of
okay.
of not good.
Okay.
Why has it gone small? It got stretch to screen. Yes, nearly. I think I can scale better than that. Scale to window. Yay! There we go. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Yes. Here's Dan Moore from Modulus III. I hope you all enjoyed that little video. I've only watched the first half of it, so I need to watch the rest of it afterwards. But yeah, wow. All right. Thank God it got big again, she said. That was a comment there. Yeah. Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, I'm going to have to figure that out. I think when you go to, for some reason, go into a video and then going back to the screen just makes it, I don't know, makes it go small. Yeah. Anyway, here's Dan. So, Dan, right. Well, we first met quite a while ago. I think probably Glastonbury 2007, I believe, when you were more commonly known as Pinstripe Dan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. God, that's a while ago, isn't it? It's me. Yeah. I remember when you were walking. I think Korg had just released something, and something amazing that was sort of some kind of miniature like music making machine. And I remember you turned up at a gig one time, and you were just like walking around going, "Check this out!" And it's like one of the early Volkers or something, and it was like going on a loop, and you were just like, "Look at this!"
I think it might have even been Chaoscillators actually. Early, I think it was before Volkers. I think that was I think it was little portable Chaoscillators. Yeah. But of course, I would never do something like that. Yes, no. Of course I would. Yeah, a bit more volume on Dan would be cool. So, okay, well, I think I could probably maybe turn me down a little bit and turn the master up. That might help. Okay, let's see how we get on with that. So yeah, Glastonbury 2007. That was a really, really soggy Glastonbury. I think it was the soggiest of them all. So, Glastonbury.
One of those.
It was the nightmare one actually, because it was the one where it's quite often when at Glastonbury you get this glorious weather in all the lead up to Glastonbury, and then a few days just before the festival starts, and then when the festival starts, then it comes down. But in that 2007, my goodness, the weather was spiteful. It came down in all the week leading into the festival, so the festival was already a quagmire before, so as people were arriving, it was turned into slop. But the rain carried on every day all the way through, and then on a Sunday, instead of giving us a little bit of sunshine, it came down heavier than it had come down in all the thing leading up to it. It was awful. I can remember seeing the very last thing was like seeing Bill Bailey on this stage, and he was wearing like a kind of some sort of Hawaiian shirt, and he was kind of just going through the motions doing his thing as everyone was just stood there shivering in the rain, having endured, a week of just absolutely horrific conditions. So, but I mention this because I was running a stage with my good friend Chris Powell, and that was backstage of the Jazz World, and we had a jamming stage there. And you were one of the participants in that jam, in some of those jams there. So that was, that should have been a really great job, really, running a jam stage. And it kind of was. We did get some good jams, but the kind of spirit, was kind of, people were just ground in with that weather. Anyway, I'm sorry. This is all irrelevant to the main topic. However, so Dan, you are a keyboard player who has got classical chops and jazz chops, and you've done you've done all sorts of keyboard sort of gigs, really, haven't you?
Yeah, I've kind of never been. I don't know. I guess I never been really happy sort of doing one thing, or being sort of like staying in one place for too long, or being, sort of being that person who kind of like goes that way. I've always had an interest in all sorts of other different kinds of music, and always wanted to sort of remain open to different ways of playing and playing with different people and all of that, because that's what music is, isn't it? So, I mean, yeah, I've always sort of tried to be flexible, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work at all.
But there. So, I mean, one thing that's really good about Bristol is there is a really great standard of musicianship in Bristol. I mean, there are some terrific musicians here, and so actually, for someone like yourself, there's lots of different kinds of opportunities to play in Bristol. But I mean, obviously, you've played, way beyond just playing in Bristol. But so I was thinking, well, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I said that you are a member of Will Gregory's Moog Ensemble, or Moog Ensemble. Choose name for your. Do you call it Moog Ensemble or Moog Ensemble?
Moog Ensemble.
Oh, you're a good boy.
This is something that Will talks about, because there's apparently the proper pronunciation is Moch.
Moch, yes, the
apparently.
Moch.
Yeah. But even Bob apparently was just sort of like, don't, just whatever whatever works.
Yeah, but just for people who haven't experienced it, now it is a fantastic thing. I've seen it myself, and it is a joyous thing. Could you just give a little explanation what happens in the Moog Ensemble?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's a collection of players from all over the place, and from all kinds of disciplines, really. So people like Hazel Mills, who's in Florence Welsh and Goldfrapp, Georgie Ward, who's like a classical musician, amazing classical musician, Graham Fitkin, who's an awesome composer. But we all play synthesizers, and we all play predominantly analog synthesizers. And it all stems from pretty much Switched on Bach and Wendy Carlos. So the project was formed basically to sort of play a lot of that kind of music. And it's since evolved to kind of encompass sort of like original compositions by some members of the ensemble and sort of cover versions and stuff. So recently we started playing some John Carpenter stuff. So we've been playing things like Escape from New York and all that stuff, Alan Howarth sort of stuff. And all manner of things as well. Eddie Parker, who's an awesome, great musician from Loose Tubes.
Loose Tubes, indeed.
Yeah, back in the day, yeah.
Yeah.
He's great, and he writes some really nice things as well for the ensemble.
Right. Just to clarify, you don't actually have to be playing a Moog. There are. I mean, I remember when you were playing last. There was some mini Moogs, and there was some. Oh gosh, what? But I mean, there was all sorts. There was some Rolands, I think. Some
all kinds of things. I mean, there's some modern Moogs in there. There's like a Sub 37. I play a Sub 37 midied up to a Moog Taurus as well. So I've got like. If I want to get there, I can get there. So that's nice. But there's all kinds of things. Like there's SH101s. There's a mix of Roland and Korg instruments. Yeah. All of them old. And sometimes some real kind of obscurities kind of make their way to the stage, because Adrian and Will obviously have, a few things to choose from.
Yeah.
So sometimes they'll bring along some sort of recent acquisition, and everyone will gather around and say, "What is this?"
But also, Will Gregory. So Will Gregory is, for those of you who don't know, Will is kind of one half of the duo of Goldfrapp, the main central core of Goldfrapp. He typically doesn't play live with them. I don't think he ever has particularly, but he is the producer and co-writer. And am I right in thinking he was a saxophone player in Tears for Fears?
This is correct.
Wow.
Yeah,
Now,
that's correct.
I mention that because one of the things that I think is a really appealing part of the Moog Ensemble is the actual wind controllers as well, the wind control aspect of it. Because you don't really get to see that very much. Or wind controllers are quite often played in a kind of noodly fusion way. So hearing it in the context of the Moog Ensemble is really quite interesting and quite expressive, really. And that's certainly something that I find quite exciting.
It's really cool. I mean, and the main reason that Will and Simon, who's also using a wind controller, he's brilliant, Simon Harum. The main reason they use those is because they're just more comfortable and they can actually fly around the ranges a lot quicker using that wind controller. So in terms of like range, also effects, because they can assign different kind of modulations to different keys and stuff. So it can get like quite involved, obviously, pretty quickly. But it's brilliant, you know, because they can both go from like right up there, sort of screaming away, all the way down to sort of subs, and in like no time, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
There's not many instruments that can do that, you know.
No, right.
And I think that's the point of the ensemble, really, is because synths, especially old synths, I mean, when they first emerged, they were making sounds that no one had heard before, you know, and I think it's more of a celebration of that. You know, these instruments within themselves are capable of making sounds that no other instrument can make. So it's about that, really, rather than trying to replicate, you know, violins or any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
it's about synths kind of being front and center.
Yeah, lovely. Asio Head in the chat room is saying that Sonic State did a piece on the Moog Ensemble, and that's on YouTube. So yes, very good point there. So anyone who is interested, that's probably a good place to start. I think there's a few other videos there, I think, as well, if you want to interest. Because how many people are in the ensemble? I guess that number changes slightly, but it's certainly a fair few players.
Yeah, there's usually between, I think there's about 10 of us usually, 10 or 14 sometimes. I can't remember.
Wow.
But I mean, there was a few of us last year. We played at the Proms in the Royal Albert Hall. We played with the BBC Concert Orchestra.
Amazing.
We did the Brandenburg 3, like with an orchestra, which was like, it's like ridiculous. You know,
how did you think the synths?
Absolutely ridiculous.
How did you think the synths kind of sat with the orchestra then?
Yeah, that was interesting. That was interesting. We kind of got quite a guarded welcome from the orchestra, you know, and we turned up and started trying to tune up and things like that. Sort of very much like that, you know. But actually, no, really quite well. I mean, we had, it was actually this time last year, it was one of the hottest, it was the hottest day of the year ever. We were rehearsing in Alexandra Palace, so we had a good day to sort of have a go at blending the sounds between the orchestra and the synthesizers a bit. And sort of meet our counterpart players, you know, and all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it was interesting.
Well, so were you actually sort of playing in unison then? Sort of, you would be like, so there would be a synth and then some kind of classical instruments playing the same lines?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Oh.
But we would try and add, say, extra colour, usually through modulation or through range. Like I would go a sub-octave below on the basses or something for some passages, and then, you know, sort of try and do something different rather than all of us playing essentially the same sound in the same parts, you know. So the sounds had to be considered a little bit, but it's just so much fun. It's just one of those moments where you sort of blink and go, what? How did this happen?
Right.
Yeah. And somewhere like the sort of, I don't know, the 7-year-old me was sort of going, yeah, this is exactly what you wanted to be doing with your life, you know. This kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
So apart from we're going to talk about Modulus 3 in a moment, but before we do, I just wanted to talk about some of your other experiences, because you've played with some jazz greats really as well, haven't you, over the years?
I've been really fortunate. I mean, I've played with Andy Shepherd quite a bit. I've played, my last gigs before the lockdown happened were with Pee Wee Ellis.
Pee Wee Ellis of James Brown, Cold Sweat, the author of, I do believe. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So,
and that's all, you know, Hammond organ, clavinet, Fender Rhodes, and very much in that kind of realm, which I love.
Right.
So
Me too.
It's just a
So this
good
is
spot. To be in.
this is great because this is exactly led into what I wanted to ask you about. Now,
Okay.
sometimes you see, especially the difference between being an organist and being a pianist and being a synthesist. And those different I suppose being a clavinetist as well.
Yeah.
The actual physical feel of these instruments, for instance, and a rhodist as well. Is it a rhodist? Electric pianist.
Yeah, a Rhodist.
A rhodist. Now, something that I find really fascinating about these different instruments is that when the actual physicality of them. So, like, if you were to play a clavinet, you can feel the bounce you can kind of feel the string through the keys.
Yeah.
Now, so clearly, if you're playing a clavinet sample or something on a regular MIDI controller, you don't have that physical connection that you do to the actual instrument itself. And similarly with the Rhodes, with those tines, you can get that different expression depending on how hard you play. And Hammonds, of course. Now, see, I'm sort of answering the questions I was going to ask you. But out of those instruments, what is your absolute favourite in terms of key action?
Oh my goodness me! It's a weird question.
It is.
Well, they're all so different. So sort of having a favorite is kind of weird because every instrument is so different.
We'll scrap that question. We'll scrap that question, and let's just talk about. So, like, for instance, Hammond. For instance, now I love Hammond, and in fact, I do want to at some point cop some licks off you, some organ. What would you say? Like, what would you say is or what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe more used to playing coming from a piano side of things? What would you say is the biggest thing that they need to do to adapt their playing to organ? That's a tricky question.
I know, it's a good question. It's a really good question because it's quite common that for pianists to sort of get in front of a Hammond organ and sort of go, why isn't this working?
Yeah.
And it kind of, I guess it's to do with a lot of it's to do with being more reductive, I think. So you can't play like massive fistfuls of chords, for instance, on an organ because they just clog up, So you have to be leaner with the way in which you like voice chords and things like that, And I think that's and also you have to get to grips with the swell pedal because you have no dynamic control via the keys themselves. So you have to get handy with the swell pedal for your quiets and your louds. So and then develop that that takes a while to kind of like develop your own sense of phrasing and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty tricky. It's always ongoing as well. It's like an ongoing thing, like anything,
Right.
So it's interesting because
the only similarity is the layout of the notes, really. The fact that the notes are kind of, the physical way that you play it is completely different. So that's quite interesting what you're saying there about being sparser and not playing the same sort of clusters of notes that you might play on a piano. Do you, when you look at old music that's kind of written for the organ and it gives you the kind of the registrations, like I think the classic Hammond sound is it B8880000.
That's the Jimmy Smith one.
That's the Jimmy Smith one, right? Okay. So I'm always quite fascinated by when I see a really good organist who knows how to kind of use the drawbars, because of course this is additive synthesis, really, isn't it? To give it another term.
Yeah, totally.
But what would motivate you when you're playing to change the drawbars? Why would you do that, and in what kind of musical context?
Oh, right. Yeah. It's dynamic. It's all dynamic shifts. So if you really want to make an impact, you just pull them all out, fire the Leslie over and just like go, If you really want to be more subtle and soft or more ballad like, then you might just have like the third drawbar out and have that really sort of plaintive kind of like almost harmonium like kind of sound, you know. But I guess after a while you don't really want to be, at first you're kind of really thinking about those changes and like, right, this is definitely this sound and that. But once you kind of familiarize yourself with the instrument, you can kind of just start reaching for it instinctively, you know, and that's
Instinctive.
that kind of thing that you want to get to.
Right.
But again, that's something that always changes, because situations in gigs are always different, and you know, if you're playing with people where it's never the same night after night, then you know you adapt. You can, if you're leading a band that you know is kind of receptive enough to sort of go to certain places, then you can kind of adapt that way. Cool. I'm totally waffling now.
No, it's good. No, it's good. This is good. No, it's good. I'm dropping questions on you. No, I was kind of curious that if you kind of, you know, the fact that you can kind of thin your sound out a little bit. I mean, I was thinking of an analogy from, I've got this bass guitar here, for instance, that it's got this. It's a G&L L2000, which is Leo Fender's last great bass design. You know, Leo Fender went from the precision bass's design to the jazz bass. You know, precision bass in the 50s, the jazz bass in the 60s, the Music Man Stingray in the 70s, and the G&L L2000 in the 80s. You see, so I think it's quite an interesting evolutionary bass, the L2000. Now, I mention that because when you play around with it, it's got a switch which changes the pickups from serial to parallel, I think. But you know, when you plug it in, it's like it sounds really lovely, and then you flick the switch, and it sounds really awful. When you flick the switch, it's like all the thickness of the sound kind of goes, and it's just it's like, oh. So it's got a nice and a shit switch, you know. So right, ooh, this song. I think I'll have the nice sound. Next song, yeah. I think I'll make the sound a bit shitter. So so I was a bit baffled about it until I was using that bass in a gig, and I was like, oh man, there's just like all this swampy sound going on. I flicked the switch, and it was amazing. It was like. Yeah. It just sounded great. I found the kind of sweet spot, and it was great. And I was going, okay, the shit switch has actually got some kind of, you know, it's pretty cool. So yeah. So I guess.
Well, you need a shit switch or two every now and then, because you never know. Yeah. You never know if it's going to come in handy.
It's the shit. It's the different definition of the shit, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So I mean. I am a massive lover of the kind of classic kind of 70s kind of keyboard rig of, you know, Hammond, a clavinet, a mini Moog, and a Rhodes, you know, or a Whirly, that kind of thing. Yeah. You know, and then clearly people's backs and people's wallets, all of those things contributed to the rise of the all-in-one kind of keyboard, which, you know, the do-it-all sort of stage keyboard, which Nord, I guess, kind of were the first company, I think, to really get that right. I was just kind of curious about your own kind of experience with that sort of thing, you know, and what have you found that is the best thing that kind of covers as much ground as, you know, rather than having all of those lovely instruments as much as you'd like to have them, but you know.
Yeah. I think, that's an interesting one. It's been interesting to see it sort of develop as well at the moment. But I've always thought, I mean, when Nord came along with the kind of stage pianos and the electros especially, that felt like you could actually achieve, you know, a gig on one machine, using one machine, using one instrument. That was the first time, really. But also the Hammond organs were always the trickiest things to make sound good, especially in the stage piano kind of world, or, you know, that kind of area.
And waterfall keys,
the electro.
The lack of waterfall keys, piano keys and waterfall keys,
well,
are really different, aren't they?
It was the sound. more importantly,
sound.
the sounds were just like weird, and the top end was always not quite right, and it just never felt right. And the Leslie sounds were always too square; they weren't sort of round sounding, and it was always a bit weird. But then when the Electros came out, the Hammond organ on that kind of changed everything.
There I go. That's the bit everyone is excited for when my cameras conk. But there we go. Yes, sorry about that. So like Rhodes, I always find a real Rhodes is a very sensual instrument to play, and very you play certain things on the physical with an actual Rhodes, especially a suitcase, when you've got that lovely stereo vibrato going on or tremolo going on, and just playing almost very minimal stuff with lots of sustain, and a beautiful thing. But with keyboards, with the recreations of it not quite having that same physical reaction, maybe it leads people to either overplay or not play what they want to. So so how do you typically adapt from knowing the physical going to these where you lose that physical feedback? Are you kind of just getting into the instrument for what it is, or are you kind of using a certain amount of bluff and just trying to tap it?
Yeah, always. I think that's the hardest thing. Is there's always a bit of a compromise to be made with those kinds of instruments, because the action doesn't fit every sound, So for instance, trying to play like a sort of like a delicate Wurlitzer part or a piano part on waterfall keys, you can't use the same physicality, and you can't dig in the same way.
Right.
And after a while, like the way in which you have to alter your technique when sort of moving between those sounds on the one keyboard can be really quite bizarre. It can be a bit weird.
Yeah.
So it's always a bit of a compromise. So you kind of have to, after a while, if you are just sort of doing a gig or a tour or something where everything is based on that one keyboard and that one feel, that one action, you just have to just adapt. That's all you can do.
Adapt.
And pianists, keyboard players are very used to adapting. That's one thing that we're really good at. Yeah. Because when you're flying into gigs and it's hiring equipment and all that kind of stuff, you never really know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So, you could play the best Hammond organ of your life, or half of it could go down during a gig, which happened to me. At one point.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, it was in Romania somewhere. Oh. Yeah, it was Romania. Yeah. And it was this organ, and it had been signed by John Lord and all of that. And
wow.
They get like the players to sign the organs and stuff. So sometimes you turn up and there's one that's been signed by like everyone, and you're like, wow.
Wow.
So there's a big John Lord signature on it and stuff. And I thought, oh, this could be good. And in soundcheck, it sounded ace, but then it was left to bake on a stage for like 5 hours. And then during the gig, about halfway through the second tune, it just sort of went like that, and then the whole gig was like, it was just a bit of a weird one.
So I've got a Hammond in here.
What?
I've got a little Hammond in my studio. It's just it's only a little transistor one though. It's an X2. It sounds great though. It's got a real got a lot of presence in the sound, but it only lasts for 20 minutes before it conks out. So anytime I'm using it on a session, I've got to work out exactly what the parts are, and then it's going, go quick. And then you have to get the part down before it conks. Well, I was going to say,
I like that. Yeah. I like that. Though. Yeah, that's good. That means that the result is going to be really interesting with that kind of constraint.
Yes,
I kind of like that. I like that extreme.
But I've got the Hammond plugged into. I've got it going through a ring modulator and then into a little analog delay pedal, and a combination of Hammond, ring mod, and an analog delay is just such an evocative sound, you know. Again, for my favourite genre of nightmare ambience, it's the perfect the perfect tool. I was going to say though, my good friend Richard Hilton, those of you who watch Sonic State will be very familiar with him. He is the main keyboard player in Nile Rodgers' Chic, and talking to him about about this thing about going touring without the classic instruments and just using modern things, and he loves it. And the reason he loves it, he goes, that's what I go on tour with now. That's his touring rig, because they get Roland RD, or I'm not sure which model, but they get the same. It's a very easily found one. So he just has his USB stick into the Roland, loads his set in, and that's it. So I mean,
it's amazing.
Rich has, he's gone from having all of the kit to a USB stick for touring.
That's awesome. I love that. But it's sort of always changing, isn't it? I mean, you can never keep up with the next kind of like the next phase of how the technology sort of changes the live approach. It's just crazy. It's just mad what people can do, what you can do.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you can kind of just like have very, very complex, like analog synthesizer sounds, for instance, and just have the editor on your laptop, and you could use the same synth anywhere in the world. Just plug in your USB and then just have all of your sounds like there.
Yeah.
That's great. That's such a leap.
Well, yeah.
I mean, when you think about preset cards and all that kind of stuff, and then just like flying by the seat of your pants, you know, and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
I just want to mention, Di Stanton in the chat room has said, I used to gig with a Hammond A100, two Leslie 145s, an SVT stack, and a twin reverb. He just had his zillionth physio session today.
Fair play.
Yeah, fair play. Yeah, but I mean, but that's the thing, though, isn't it? When you've got the Leslie spinning, the physicality of the sound bouncing around the room, you know, is a thrilling thing that, you know, as good as Leslie simulators get, and they do. I mean, you know, coming out of a set of monitors or headphones or whatever, they can sound really, really good, and but that physical thing, you can just feel it, can't you? You can just feel the Leslie. It's an incredible device. Anyway, so moving into the present day then, and
can I just say as well, can I just on that Hammond organ note, I would love to be an advocate for Hammond organs and Leslie's appearing in more venues.
Hooray!
Because that's what used to happen. You used to go to the pub and there'd be a guy playing Hammond organ in the corner.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's got to happen again somehow.
I remember going into a music shop and they had a Hammond there. It was and they had all the modern keyboards there. But me and my friend had spotted this Hammond there, and they had the old guy in the shop. We were like going, "Oh, can you play the Hammond for us?" And he had this massive grin on his face. He fired it up. You know, it was the proper, you know, get it spinning, fire it up. And then he just started playing that music, that organ music. It's a genre of itself, isn't it? You know, but there he was like doing all the drawbars. His feet were going, you know, he was playing all this rapid stuff on his feet. And I think he was just super thrilled that these kind of young guys, this was years ago, had come in and shown this interest, and he just played for us for about half an hour, just with this just gigantic grin on his face, and it was just a joyful thing. But I am kind of conscious that incredible set of skills to do that is dying out, really, isn't it? I guess, you know. Yeah. So
I mean, there's only Dr. Lonnie Smith, I think, is the last of the original kind of Hammond organ players left, and he's been teaching a few people, you know, this sort of next generation of how to approach the instrument properly. I mean, Joey DeFrancesco as well is also incredible, like, you know, very much an advocate. He studied with Jimmy Smith, studied with everybody, so he's kind of like passing on. You know, the tradition is kind of being passed on about how to play how to walk the bass, how to use the foot pedals properly, the right kind of registers, the right kind of approach. It's all still being done. So I think the instruments will change, and they'll inevitably kind of, a lot of the original instruments are just like swiftly becoming unplayable. But the clone wheels are getting better, so you can still replicate the physicality of an organ and the sound really. So I think the tradition is. I don't think that's going to go anywhere.
Okay. But just the instruments themselves will be, Okay, so moving on then to Modulus 3, and what an amazing band! I got to be honest. I think it's brilliant. It feels like it's something that couldn't really have existed in any other time period. It feels very fresh and up to date. So just wanted to talk a little bit about how. I mean, I know there's a bit about that in the video that everyone will have watched, I guess, about the coming together of the band, and I guess Drew bringing his unique perspective and musicianship in.
Yes.
But yeah, I was just interested to get a few of your thoughts really about what was the kind of influences and the motivation for the direction that you've taken with it.
Well, I think there's a little bit in the documentary about that, but I think largely it was all like a mistake. The whole thing it just kind of like it happened through a series of I don't know, just sort of unfortunate events really. Because me and Matt were going to do a gig with a bass player, and the bass player didn't turn up, so we just decided to make a leap and just play and improvise together, and I would just bring all my stuff. And Drew was at that gig, and they just came up straight away afterwards and said, "Can I be in your band?"
Nice.
And it was like a pact that we all kind of agreed that we would never discuss anything about the music that we would make. We would always just improvise purely. Like the minute we stepped in front of our instruments, that was it, and that's been the guiding principle now for like 4 years. So
when you perform live, what percentage of the music is improvised, and how much of it is written then?
All of it's improvised.
All of it's improvised, every performance. Wow.
Yeah.
Without any fallbacks.
No fallbacks.
Wow.
No.
All seat of the pants, all in the moment.
All of it. Yeah.
Including the real world session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's,
and you don't talk about it then. So you don't. So that's the pact. You just that.
Well, I think because when we made the record in Real World, we had a break in the middle, so we did like 2 sets, in front of an audience in that live room studio, and we just sort of in the break we kind of went, well, in the second half we kind of did something like this, so let's start in this kind of way. So we sort of suggested like a mood or a feeling or something like that, but no one's like swapping notes or humming ideas at each other. It's all just like we get up there and it's it is what it is. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty weird place to be in. And yeah, I mean the Real World thing was a risk, It was a massive gamble.
Yeah.
But there's something about the ridiculous odds of just sort of, putting yourself in a position where you're gonna just make stuff up in a studio like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you just is it just about the listening to the other player, keeping out of their way and taking the space when it's available? Or do you typically do you cover the bass and do you have like kind of defined roles in that respect?
A little bit. I mean, inevitably over time, it's kind of like we swap and change between lots of different kind of roles, really. And I mean, Drew especially has a lot of flexibility in terms of the areas that he can cover, both with like cello, keyboards, synthesizers. He also sticks the cello through a load of effects and can create like massive kind of huge textures. But with the keyboards as well that I have, we have a lot of places where we can go, so we do kind of swap over. But I guess, and this is kind of down to the instruments really, but I always tend to default to the bass with a Moog Sub 37 and stuff.
Nice.
Because
Yeah.
That is, this kind of sounds so great doing that stuff. And Drew's got an MS-20, and that lends itself incredibly well to bass. Also, as you know,
Yeah.
it's
No, it's gorgeous.
a killer for bass stuff. So we do kind of end up gravitating. Instruments do kind of dictate a little bit, and we do have several roles that we can play. But in terms of the exchange of ideas, which I think you talked about, it's a bit like someone will start something, we'll kind of rush in to support that, and then somebody might just start to rebel against that or something.
Yeah.
So that splinter element will happen, and then we'll kind of all gradually drift over. Or sometimes we'll all make a change like quite suddenly, and and I think when that happens, and when it happens with a degree of fluidity, that's when we're kind of like, that's why we do it. It's for those moments where we all make the same turn at the same time. It's like,
Nice.
well,
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah.
So in terms of then recording, do you typically record more and then edit together, or do you take complete performances? Do you have like a kind of is it like do you take a complete performance and leave it as is, or do you do a bit of it in a silent way and sort of chop bits together? Or
Good question. It's because that's the most difficult thing, I think, because we want to preserve the spirit of the performance a little bit.
Yes.
But also we're aware that we're making a record as well at the same time. And
right.
If you're at Real World and you've got access to all those kinds of preamps and the SSL desk and all of those marvelous things, then why not take advantage of them rather than using it as a very expensive tape machine. So I mean, I think at the moment we're still mixing the Real World sessions, so it's like 3/4 of the way there.
Okay.
And there's one sort of epic tune which is sort of like about 15 or 20 minutes long, and because it goes into different areas across that time period, we're not overdubbing and we're not cutting bits out. We're definitely trying to preserve like the whole performances as they were, because there's something in that. Even if you're making music that's like structured, getting whole takes is like it's the thing, isn't it?
What I've typically found with a lot of I do lots of improvising too, and in different bands. And what I typically find though is that to isolate sections doesn't always feel as satisfying as it's like the bit itself. You might hit on a beautiful area, but it's the way it's gone from this point to this point, and the way it's morphed across that actually isolating a part of it isn't necessarily as satisfying as the whole journey. It's not necessarily it's a so I do particularly find it quite difficult.
It is a challenge. And we have the same thing. Like when we're listening through, things are great at the end when they've gotten to that certain point, but all of those little changes that happen along the way are the things that you've got to kind of keep in there for context.
So I've been developing a system for years now, which is called emotional editing, which is about the idea of guiding the editing process by emotional reactions. And I won't go into it too much, but what the principle of it is you listen to a performance. Maybe, for instance, an example I might give is if you've got a bunch of vocal takes, and it's not about them being awful singers and just trying to find something good out of, it's when you've got something that is maybe you've got like 4 or 5 vocal takes that are all roughly the same.
Yeah.
So you listen to it and you don't edit at all. In fact, the screen turns off. There's no screen, so you don't have any visual thing. I do believe in waveform prejudice. That when you're picking between takes, is like if it's a pretty waveform, you go, I'm gravitating to that waveform just because it just looks a bit nicer. So remove the visual aspect of it, and you listen to takes, and all you do is I've been doing it with like a touch screen. You just you don't even look at the touchscreen. You just hold it in your hand, and as you listen to it, every time you like something, you slide up. Every time you're not so keen on something, you slide down. And everybody in the band or everybody in the process has this. So,
Wow.
so as everybody's listening to it, everybody is kind of going, oh, yeah, like that bit. Don't like that bit. Then all that information is kind of aggregated. And then you've kind of got these likes and dislike kind of charts.
Yeah.
And then the computer does all the hard work for you then. It just kind of goes, okay, so this bit is like uniformly, everybody liked that bit. People didn't like that bit, so we'll switch out that bit for that bit. And it does all the editing for you. You've just basically said which bits you liked and which bits you didn't like. That's the principle of it. But I mean, that's
You've taken the principles of like social media and applied them to mixing.
Well, yeah, it's a sort of, yeah. It's funny though, because sometimes when you listen to something, you might have an irrational reason why you kind of like something. And it might not be that it's bang on in pitch, or whatever. In fact, I'm sort of referring in this case in vocals, there may be a particular vocal slur that has got some emotional resonance about it. Something that happens in a trap that I definitely get into. I've done absolutely hours and hours of vocal editing over the years and worked on lots of pop stuff and multi-track vocal things, blah, blah, blah. You get into this thing of like, once you start to pitch things correctly and put things bang into tune, you listen to it, go, that's a great take, and I kind of left it there. That was a great take. Or I'll just swap out that one line for that line. But then you go, I'll just tweak the pitch, and you put something of it into tune, then suddenly it throws the rest of it slightly out of tune. You become kind of aware of the pitch centers not being absolutely bang on as soon as you've started to correct small parts of it. And then it's like Pandora's box, going through it all and micro editing it, and you lose perspective of the emotional resonances. Like, as I say, you listen to a lot of classic singers from the past and they're not in tune.
No.
Or they're kind of, even like people like Sinatra, they're in tune where they need to be, but they kind of sing a bit flat in parts, and it's it's a really an important element of the emotional context of music that, so some these ideas of getting away from the screen and just relying purely on the ears. And of course you've also got the McGurk effect that you always have to watch out for. Do you know the McGurk effect? That's when sorry, I'm kind of soapboxing a little bit here. The McGurk effect is where the information that's reaching the eyes is different somehow to the information reaching the ears. An example is, you can watch this on YouTube if you've not seen it, there's a guy going ba, 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 and then the sound keeps being the word ba, ba, but he starts miming it as fa, but the sound is always ba. But when you see it, when he's going fa, you hear it as fa. And there's examples on YouTube when you've got like a split screen and you've got him on one side going ba, on one side miming fa. The sound is always ba. You look at him and he says ba. You look at him and you hear it as fa. And it's like, my God, the eyes, my eyes, they're lying. They've been lying to me. The ears, the McGurk effect. That's what it's called. So the ears. So yes. So do not trust your eyes, ladies and gentlemen. They're lying little bastards. They might look all pretty and sweet, but they're cunning little sods. The ears are the things to trust. Yes. So yes.
Excellent.
Excellent. But I mean, I do think that things like that can affect the, and I mean, I was referring in vocals there, but just really listening and trying to disconnect a little bit from the amazing forensic editing tools that are available to us.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm just looking at time. I'm sorry. I've just totally just blurted out over the last 5 minutes. I think we'll probably be wrapping up in a moment. So, so what I'd like to ask you though is when can people possibly expect the album to be ready by?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We're currently just mixing, finishing off the mixing basically, and then we're going to make it available on Bandcamp as soon as possible. So
Bandcamp.
Yeah, definitely. That was a decision that we kind of made as a band fairly recently, actually, just in the light of recent things. But I think, it shouldn't be too long now, I think. And if we're on all the usual places like Twitter, all of it, Facebook, Instagram, all of that stuff.
So people can follow, and it's Modulus 3, and it'll be spelt as 3 capital I's.
3 capital I's.
Yeah. So that's the best way for people to keep in touch. Then you'll inform once things are. But there is one album out already. Is that right? It's just the one I think so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's just called Modulus 3, and that was our first record that we made. Again, it was through Improvised, and that was, I think, 2016. That one came out. So yeah, but that's out there and available, and there's vinyl available for that as well.
Oh, excellent! Yeah,
yeah. There's a few copies left. There's a handful of copies left of vinyl. So if anyone wants vinyl, then do get in touch with us. Yeah,
excellent. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Well, Dan, thank you ever so much for joining us and, for granting us the world exclusive of the new documentary. I'm guessing that video will be out on YouTube at some point, but that will probably later wants to coincide with the album launch, I expect.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we had a quick sort of conversation today on messages and stuff, and we just said, let's just put it out now, and get people to see it. So that's been really nice. So thank you for having me along and giving us the opportunity to put that in front of people. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
The pleasure's all mine. I'm a huge fan. So yeah, so it's absolutely brilliant to have you on. Little message there in the chat room though is, it's just scrolled off the screen as a. I wonder if the McGurk effect works on synth nerds with a Moog 1 on screen and a Timberwolf, the dreaded Timberwolf, doing the sound. Very good. Okay, so Dan, I just want to say thank you, and to the chat room again, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us and for that lively, lovely conversation that's been going on. I like to watch. I get to watch it a little bit as it's going on, but I love to read it afterwards. Oh, cool. I do get to read it. Yeah. So, and maybe in the future we can come. Well, actually, in the future we'll get Modulus 3 to come and perform live on the show, because I'm gonna have live performances at some point in the future, and I think that would be awesome if you guys would be up for doing that. I think
that'd be really nice.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Lovely. Oh, Jacob Hack. Great. Jacob Hack is watching. He's he is a wonderful YouTuber, iOS guy. It's lovely to see him there. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks everybody once more, and thank you, Dan. And tune in next week for more, probably some more Nightmare Ambient and some and some other things. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you all soon. Cheerio. Bye. Bye.